Hey guys, so welcome back to another episode of the Path to Profit podcast. I am super excited to be back with this episode because we're going to be talking about something that really be messing a lot of y'all up in business. And it's very strange because it's the thing that makes you money. So you got to learn it at some point. But I'm even more excited to bring a guest to you guys today who is so special to me. I have this running joke that if I had to fire everybody else in my life and business, I would fire everybody quickly and I would keep her for forever because she's so helpful and she's just so amazing and she's so knowledgeable, and I can't believe I'm sharing her with y'all, but here we are. So today we're going to be talking about smart inventory and how that equals more profit. As y'all know, on this podcast we talk about money, we talk about profitability, and inventory is a huge component of that. So we have to talk about it. Today's guest is Darlene Mitchell, who I absolutely love. I started working with Darlene, I don't know, I feel like it was during the pandemic, maybe right before the pandemic or right at the beginning of the pandemic, not sure. But it was kind of at the height of me feeling like my business was taking off. You know, I was looking at the sales. I was looking at the revenue on the screen on Shopify, and it was like, you made $1,000. I'm like, yes, I made $200,000. I did not have $200,000 in my bank account. I had nowhere near it, nowhere close to it. And someday I stumbled upon Darlene, started working with her, did this call where she blew my mind and taught me things I had never heard in my entire life. And here we are. It's that first year after working with Darlene, I more than doubled my sales. And it was literally because I learned inventory. It was not the posting more. It wasn't sending the right emails, spending the right amount of money on ads. It was the inventory, y'all. So I'm so excited to introduce y'all to Darlene Mitchell. And Darlene, you want to take a moment to introduce yourself and tell them all the good things about you and your work and why you're amazing.
I love it. Jance, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. We talk all the time in your group, but it is special to be on a podcast. And yes, we started working together sometime during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And your business was growing, and I'm like, okay, but you're making some mistakes.
Yeah.
So for those who haven't met me before or talked to me before, my name is Darlene Y. Mitchell, and my background is really in inventory management and planning. So I did decades in corporate retail, which taught me everything I need to do to help my clients who are on the small business side, right? So I have clients that are from, $250,000 to $15 million. And it really is helping them understand their inventory, their cash flow, their profitability, and all those things that go with it, and planning appropriately, forward planning, all that. So in corporate, I started at the very bottom as an analyst and worked my way up to a VP. So when I left, I was a vice president. I had a portfolio of about $350 million of inventory that I was handling that equated to about a little bit over $800 million in sales. So that's what I'm used to. So I bring that big retail, big business fundamentals and concepts to my small business clients.
I love that. So funny story, when me and Darlene first started working together, we had a moment where we were like, I don't even know what word to use, but I was like, I worked in retail. She worked in retail, but here's the funny story. So one of the things I just heard you say is how you started from the bottom. And I started from the bottom too, but the thing is we started from the bottom in different aspects of retail. And I always tell people, if you want to learn how to sell something, I can do that. But what I could not have told anybody how to do or taught anybody how to do was plan. I could not teach them sales. I didn't even know what sales planning was. When I learned of a Darlene, I was like, oh, wow. There's a very large aspect of retail that I do not know at all. And I can only teach people from the perspective of what I taught myself. Once I personally started working with Darlene, it, in all honesty, made me a lot smarter and a lot better of a coach because I was able to see even where, not to say I was telling anybody to do something wrong, but more so to say I wasn't telling them to do things in the right order or for the right reason, or not telling them to look at the right numbers because I didn't even know that I needed to look at that number. It was crazy. So My background in retail started as a sales associate, which really is like truly the bottom of the totem pole in retail. Like if you started from where you are and that being like, CEO and then CMO and then da 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 all the way down, me, little sales associate at the very, very bottom. And so I was like, all big and bad on the internet. Like, I have all this retail experience. Darlene has a totally different aspect of retail experience that is so much more, in my opinion, important, because if the inventory is not right, it doesn't matter what's happening in the store. If the store doesn't have the amount of inventory that it needs to meet its sales goals, it's not going to meet its sales goals. If it has the wrong inventory in the store, it's not going to meet its sales goals. If it doesn't have enough, or the walls are empty, it's not going to happen. So Darlene's role is so important, y'all. So important. So I want to start with a question. You mentioned that you worked in retail planning for over 2 decades, like 25 years.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And I'm 35, so 25 years is insane. So I'm wondering, what's something that most small business owners don't understand about inventory that's obvious to someone with your background? Because you mentioned, like, even I was making mistakes. So I'm curious to know, like, what are the common things you see us doing wrong?
Yeah, I think the most common thing that I see is people not thinking about that inventory as money. That inventory is cash. It's cash in disguise. You're looking at the physical thing, but it really is cash. And so the thing that I look at is how much cash you have sitting on your shelves. That's what I look at. Mm-hmm. And how fast are we turning that cash into money?
Yeah.
Because, in the big retail, we spend a lot of time with the numbers part of the business where we even bring in inventory. Mm-hmm. Like, what does our sales need to be? What are our margins? What's our profitability plan? Because the inventory drives that.
Yeah.
And so if you don't know what that should be, then you're bringing in the wrong inventory. Or, you're overbuying, you're underbuying. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the biggest thing, is not understanding that that inventory is truly cash.
Yeah.
I like thinking about it as planning a party. I always do this analogy. Mm-hmm. Planning a party, and you know what you want to have at the party. You have an idea. Mm-hmm. And you go out shopping, you buy all this stuff for the party, mm-hmm. but you have no idea how many guests are coming to your party. Mm-hmm. Whether it's 20 or 100. You just told people you're having a party, but mm-hmm. you don't know how many people are coming. So mm-hmm. you either bought too much food, and therefore you're losing money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or you don't have enough, and you got people pissed off with you and hungry.
Yes. That's so good. You know what's crazy is I use a very similar analogy, and I think this drives the point home of us being on different aspects or different ends of the spectrum in retail, because I use a party analogy too, but more so from the perspective of like creating demand of people who want to come to your party. So I always talk about how, a lot of times we're very eager to drop new inventory, but we don't have anybody coming to the party. If the drop is the party, who's coming to the party?
That's
you
right.
haven't told
That's
anybody that this new inventory is coming. You haven't passed out your, virtual invitations. So you're going to have the inventory. Imagine having a you, but not having a me to say, okay, now let's go market it. Or vice versa, having a me to say, let's go market it. But then you got too many people and not enough inventory to serve the people.
That's right. That's
crazy.
Right.
Insane. So I wonder, go ahead.
Over inventory or under inventory are both not good.
Yes. I was going to ask you a question about that, because my next question was, what are some signs that brand owners are running their business without a real inventory strategy? And I think that those two things are really big signs. I could even say for myself, I remember when we first started working together, two things that you would say to me often, and you still say to our students in the program. One, you're buying markdowns, and two, lost sales. I had never had the idea or thought that I was losing sales by not having enough inventory. I would go to buy, products, and oftentimes I was just buying based off of the money I had in the bank, or like based off of what I saw somebody else selling or whatever. Never really based off of like sales planning, never a revenue goal. It was just like, I can afford to spend blank, and I would just go buy it. And a lot of times I either underbought, or I underbought in the wrong category, or I overbought in the wrong category. I was all over the place sometimes, and I'm like, dang, I'm losing money. I see it now. I see it. So what are some signs that they're running without an inventory strategy, in your opinion?
Okay, so because I've been in the business so long, I'm looking at everybody's website. If you have a store, I'm going to your boutique. I just do that just in general because I love retail. So one of the things I do, I can go on your website and I can tell right away if you have an inventory problem. If I see a lot of out of stock, you got an inventory problem. If I see, look at your website and you have half of your product has out of stock, you have an inventory problem.
Yeah.
If I see that half your inventory is in a sale bucket, you have an inventory problem.
Yeah.
So right away, I can see where you have a problem. And that tells me that you're either flat buying, meaning you're not standing for something, right? You're buying everything the same amount.
Yeah.
And not saying this is going to be my best seller, so I'm going to buy more of that, more depth in that. So you're not strategically buying.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That tells me that one thing. Or you're guessing. You're guessing how much to buy. You're guessing the number of styles to have. Yeah. Because, you know, we talk a lot about depth and breadth. Yeah. So how many styles should I have? How much depth should I buy? Like, you're not thinking about that strategically because you don't have a sales plan. If you have a sales plan, you start with a sales plan and how much you want to do in sales, then the inventory drives that sales plan. Yeah. But you gotta know where you're going. Yeah. We talk about this all the time. Yes. Just get on the road and driving and not having a destination. Yeah. So that's what you're doing. It tells me, when I look at your website, it also tells me that you're not looking at your data. You're not looking at your trend information. So you keep buying the same exact stuff and it's not selling. So you have it on sales. Like, stop, look at your trend. Look what the numbers are telling you. Yeah. You're not looking at sell-through. You're not looking at your unit sales. You're not looking at your margin. Because sometimes I think people say, okay, this is my best-selling item. Well, it's because it was always on promo. And you have no margin in it. Yeah. So look at your data, make those decisions. Yeah. And I think that sometimes also for those who have exclusives, if you're doing your own, you may not do assortment planning, which means that you're not doing a thoughtfully curated assortment. And so the things are not working together so that, you know, your customer's like, I don't know what to buy because none of this makes sense. I can't make an outfit out of it. And so that's the other thing that happens that I see. So I literally have friends that will send me websites and say, reach out to this customer because I want to shop with them and I can't. One of my mentees, like last month, sent me a hair company. She goes, I need to get my hair done. And they don't have inventory. Can you please reach out to them?
That's so funny. No, but I do that too. Like, especially, you know, in the program and coaching people, I'm like, this person needs to work with Darlene. Like, and again, I can only attest my awareness of that to working with you because I'm able to look at someone's website because I was once the client of yours and I know where I went wrong. So now I'm able to look at someone else's business and say, oh, they're in trouble. Like, this is not going to go the way that they want. So in my experience, I find that cash flow, the financial terminology is something that's completely like, I don't want to say irrelevant, unknown to a lot of people who start businesses because as boutique owners, oftentimes we start boutiques as like a side hustle or because we love fashion or because we love shopping, which sounds justifiable, but it's almost like we don't realize or understand that it's a business and it's not just shopping. Like there's the business of fashion or the business of retail or whatever. So why does inventory have such a direct impact on cash flow and profit? I think those are like two words that we don't often hear our clients say. We hear them talk about sales a lot. We don't hear them talk about cash flow and profit. What's your thought?
Yeah, I think that is so good because there are a lot of people who don't understand the whole cash flow side of it. And it really is your cash in, cash out. Yeah. Right? And when you're just looking at your cash in, but you're not looking at what's going out, you don't have money in your bank. Yeah. Like, I remember being in, I think I was speaking in Magic. And I always talk about the Babe, the Boss, and the Beast. And I had this young lady who said she was a beast. And I asked her a question about her cash flow, and she could not answer it. I'm like, you're not a beast. You're actually a babe. Because if you don't understand your cash flow, the cash flow element and your profitability in your business, you're not running the business. You're just a seller of goods. Yes. And we need to have people stop being that, right? Yes. So I think that, again, inventory is an asset. People need to understand that. And you have to strategically plan that asset because it can be an asset or a liability real quick. That inventory can be a risk to your business really, really quickly.
Yeah.
right? So the key is about the alignment of timing, having the right inventory at the right time and the right amount. That is the key to cash flow. Because
Yeah.
what you're doing when you're flowing the right inventory and the right timing, you're pulling your inventory out, not pushing your inventory out, right? There's a difference. If I'm pulling it out, the demand is there for the customer. The customer wants this product at this time, the right amount. But if you're dropping it in the wrong timing or the wrong product, the wrong amount, you got to push it out the end. So
Yeah.
you end up pushing and you're
Yeah.
doing a lot of promotions. So that's the other thing that I see when I go on a website. I'm like, you got so much promotions. You're promotional all the time because you're pushing, because you're not strategic about the inventory,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes. That's so good. I think that, one of the biggest mistakes that I see in accordance with what you were saying or in alignment is not only are they not assortment planning, a lot of times they are buying things based off of what they see someone else selling. And on top of that, it's the wrong time. Like I think about, like, for example, I'm in the Midwest. We go through all the seasons here. If it's spring, it's spring. It's summer, it's summer. It's fall, it's fall. But if you look at I'm gonna use myself as an example. When I look at my data, the bulk of my customers are in the South. So it messed me up a lot because when it was, when I knew it was getting ready to get cold outside, I would go buy coats and I would buy chunky sweaters and all these things, and they would sit for so long, and I just didn't understand. I'm like, I don't get it. It's freezing outside. But when I looked at the data, my biggest mistake was that I wasn't looking at the data of where my customers were located, and it would have clearly shown me, like, well, they're in Florida. It's still 80 degrees outside, or they're in Texas, and it's not going to snow there until, I don't know, February, maybe. Who knows? So I was all wrong in that. And I'm wondering what's like the biggest mistake that you see boutique owners making when it comes to buying inventory? What's like the big one that comes to mind, like 99% of the time?
Ooh, what's the biggest one? There's so many.
I know there's so many. We named a lot of them.
But I think the biggest mistake is buying without a plan,
Yeah.
buying on emotion.
Yeah.
We talked about it, buying on impulse.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. If I go in and I know that I am, and I love that you brought up, that's one of the things we talked about. We talk about the almanac all the time.
Yes.
Because it tells you the weather that's going to happen in your region. But I think it's important to understand where your customer is. I truly understand your ICA and where they are. Similarly, I have a client who was in Houston. When we first worked together, she would have dresses that she would be selling, and she would show them with sandals. Where most of her clients, 60% of her clients, were in the Northeast. And I'm like, it is September in the Northeast, going to go into October. They cold. Like, what are you doing?
Give us a UGG boot. Give us some
boots.
something.
All you have to do is switch up that photo, put some boots on, and it's going to sell.
Throw on a
Those are things you
jacket.
think about.
Yeah.
And part of that, I mean, we talk about assortment planning, but some of that's demand planning too. What's the demand your customer is going to want? What's their demand? And plan it that way. But I think that's the biggest thing, is not having a plan for your inventory, not looking forward, just being so focused on the right now. And that's good, but you got to look forward to what you want to bring in, or what you need to bring in for your customer. And I always said this, when I go to Magic, or I go to any show, and girls are running around saying, this is so cute. I'm like, they put a mark down. They just put a mark down. Because they don't, they're not buying for the demand of the customer. They're buying, or the plan of sales they have. They're buying just on emotion and buying on impulse.
They're buying based on the fact that they want to put that outfit on Tuesday.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly why they buy. I think that the other thing is, you have to understand that when you're buying those things on emotion, and you're buying it based off of someone else's trend, you are tying cash up again. And that inventory is tied up. That cash is tied up, and you can't buy your right inventory.
Yeah.
Because you have so much of the wrong inventory.
Yes.
And that's what ends up happening. And unfortunately, we've seen it. We've seen businesses close because they don't have the cash flow. It's not that they don't have a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
They have great ideas, but you're tying your cash up, and therefore you can't buy your best sellers. You can't buy a new trend. You have no flexibility, right? So having that plan and understanding exactly what needs to come in, right time, right product, right amount, is so crucial to your cash flow, right? I have this client that she would bring in same amount of dresses. And I always talk about dresses, by the way.
I haven't bought a dress in so long, Darlene. I'm like, I will not buy a dress. Darlene, no. I won't buy a dress, a jumpsuit, a romper. It's not going to happen. I will not.
But I had this client who would bring in the same amount of dresses every single month. The same amount of styles, same amount of, dollar amount every single month. I'm like, why are you doing that? It's because she had a great dress season. So she assumed that it was always good. I'm like, no. We see that you have some seasonality to dresses.
Yeah.
Why are you buying dresses every single month? So I developed a plan for her. We knew exactly when she should bring dresses in and how much she should bring in. And I went to Dallas Market with her, and we're walking to the showrooms, and on the racks that she had with the vendors, with the reps, she had dresses. I'm like, why? Why? It's November. You don't sell no dresses in November. Why? Like, literally, your plan has no numbers for dresses. And so it took us a couple times, a couple shows before she said, okay, I'll do what you said because I always take this to mark down. I'm like, yeah, you always mark it down because the customer is not looking for it. They don't want it. You have to understand that demand of your client, right?
Yeah.
That cash flow has to flow. And unfortunately, her business did close because the fact that she just didn't get cash flow. She wanted to do it very emotionally. Like, even with my numbers, she still did it on emotion.
Yeah. We're going to talk about this in this episode, but I just want to prematurely say that, I remember, and you probably still reference it this way. I remember when we started working together and you would create me my open to buy plan and you would say it's like a grocery list. It's like going grocery shopping. And when I really adopted the mindset that this is my grocery list, and if I just buy, it's like a grocery list tied with like the list that your nutritionist or like your trainer would give you, and they tell you like macros and like by in this increments, right? So when I first started working with you, I could be honest and say, I was like, I'm gonna follow it kind of, sort of, but like I'm gonna still leave room to like play around and buy a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it wouldn't sell. And so when I finally said, how about you just follow her plan to a T? I followed that plan to a T, and no joke whatsoever. My sales, I mean, of course I got to go market the inventory, but my sales would come down to like cents in closeness to what we planned for me to make. And that always blew my mind because it's like, wow, this business is not just pretty pictures and photo shoots and good websites and ads. If you have the right inventory at the right time in the right quantities at the right prices, you will make the money that you want to make. And it would happen so often that, again, that's why I always say I will fire everybody and keep Darlene, because if the inventory is not right, it does not matter what any of y'all say. I remember when, I was working with my accountant and you at the same time, and I remember you and I would have a conversation. I would have a conversation with my accountant, and I would literally come back to you and be like, yeah, I don't know what they talking about over there, but what we're going to do is we're going to spend this money on this inventory. Because I know they said else, otherwise, but they don't know what they're talking about. And that's the thing I think about finances in business and the business that we have. Like, your accountant only knows what they know. They never worked in sales planning. They never worked in inventory.
Yeah.
Financial advice. They're looking at cash in, cash out. That's it. They're not looking at, like, I remember when I first started working with my current accountant, the very first thing they said to me was, wow, your data is so clean. They said, we've never seen anybody's data this clean. I said, yeah, because the data is what I'm looking at to buy the inventory. Y'all gonna tell me, some money advice, but like, I'm looking at this data. The data is gonna tell me what to do. Oh my God.
I think that the other part about cash flow is, and why I always talk about forward planning, is because if you're looking at your forward planning, your sales, how much inventory you need to make, your expenses, you can see your cash flow forward, right? So one of the months that typically mess people up is October. Your cash flow is probably going to be negative in October because you're getting ready for November. You're getting ready to buy that info for November. Yeah. And so your cash flow gets negative. If you don't look at it forward, you don't know that. And so you spend all your money that you made in August and September. You're like, oh, I got positive cash flow. I'm going to spend this money. Yeah. Well, no. You're about to have a month that you go to negative. And so I think that trips a lot of people up as well. So there's probably 2 months out of the year that you'll go negative. Like, it just makes sense. October and January, you go negative, right? Yeah. And so when you're not looking forward, if you're not forward planning, you don't know those months that you're going to go negative.
Yes. That's so good. And it kind of leads into my next question, because I think that ironically, even though I had an accountant, again, they don't look at the business in the way that you look at the business. So they were always just planning for more cash, like always more money to be made. But when I would look at the reports that you would create from my open to buy plan, it would clearly say, like, this is the month we're planning to be negative. These are the months we're planning to be positive. Like, there were multiple months where we planned to be negative. And I think that without having a you in my life, I, like most other business owners, would assume that if I just keep buying more inventory, I'm going to make more money. If I just keep cycling new inventory in every single month, every 2 weeks, every whatever, on this randomized schedule that I made up for myself, that I'm going to make more money. I'm going to have more cash in the bank. And speaking to October, and I was going to bring up November, something that I see happen every year is I have a Black Friday class where I basically help them, I help them clean up their inventory on their back end, because most of them realize they've been buying all year. They have all this inventory, and it's like, this is the time for it to go. Like, this is the opportune time for you to clear it out, give yourself a clean slate, and we move forward. The biggest issue that I find is, my goal is to help you clear the inventory out, increase your cash flow, put your cash back in the bank. But also, I'm hoping that you will see the value in working with me moving forward, so that you don't make the same mistake again. But most of them make the same mistake again. They say, oh my God, I have all this cash back. They're like, that worked. I cleared it all out. I'm like, yeah, it worked. Now we got to make sure you don't do it again. So I'm wondering, why do you think so many small business owners think that, now that I have money, I just need more inventory? If I get more inventory, that's going to mean I'm going to make more sales. I'm going to have more money in the bank.
Yeah, I think I'll go back again. When you're a seller and not a business person, you have emotions, you have fear. You're like, if I don't have that, I'm going to miss out. If I don't have that, I'm going to miss. So you just keep buying stuff. And you're looking at everybody else and what they have, so I'm going to buy that too. So you're not, you're not planning for, you're reactive instead of proactive.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing that in the group we're teaching is like, be proactive, not reactive.
Yes.
Reactive costs you a lot of money.
So much.
Reactive, you lose profitability in your business.
Yes.
Right? So I think that's the biggest thing. And more inventory is more risk. The more inventory you have, the more risk you have. And so I know people are not going to understand, but we even say buy less.
Yes.
But know what to buy less in, right? So one of the conversations we had, it may have been 2 months ago in the group, about breadth and depth.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite topics that you ever taught me, honestly, truly. I was like, oh, you said I only need 27 of this, but I need 270 of this? Got it. Got it. Love it.
The key is, you can buy more inventory. More inventory is not wrong, but it has to be in the right styles.
Yeah.
Right? So carrying a lot of inventory, just carrying a lot of different styles all across the place, is good when you're starting out because you may not know who your customer is.
Yeah.
But as your business matures, you should know what your customer desires. You can buy depth in that, right? So more inventory in that. But you have less styles, and that makes people nervous. Like, I can't have less. This other person has more than I have. Well, they're probably doing more business than you're doing. They're more mature in their business than you are, right? So that's that fear part that comes. Also, I think we talked about this last week in your group.
Yeah.
There's a point that there's negative return on investment, right? So you have negative return on investment. You have customers that are your styles are competing against themselves, right? So you could have 3-4 black shirts.
Yeah.
Well, the customer doesn't need that many choices
at all.
So instead of buying, they're like, I don't know which one I want. I'm not gonna buy anything.
Exactly.
That's when you get your abandoned cart. They put it all in the cart, and they're like, I don't think
they will literally put all of them in the cart, and they'll be like, I'll make a decision, after I look through everything else. And then they're like, I don't need a black shirt.
Exactly. That's what happens. Instead of you having 1 to 2 really good black shirts that they can't help but buy, you got 4, and they just like, I'm not going to buy anything. So I think that, startup business is they'll have more depth, more breadth and less depth because they're testing out, they're trying to understand the customer. A growing business is going to start to have more depth in their key items. They start to know the key items. A scaling business, you have breadth and depth. Yeah. Right? Because your business is grown so much. Yeah. You can have both breadth and depth. Yeah. So I have a client that does 8 figures a year, and they do 70% of their business in one category. So we can have breadth and depth in that one category because they blow, like, we can never bring enough in because they blow it out. But the other categories they carry, they have less breadth, right? Because we're like, we have 6 other categories and only 30% of the business, so we're not going to carry that much in it. We're going to offer them enough that they buy, that they can put outfits together, but we're not going to have a lot of breadth in it. So I think that's really, really smart buying.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened in my business too. And I think, like, I'm, again, so grateful that I had you in my corner, because if I were only acting off of emotion, I would have been like, oh, I am so tired of selling these sweatpants. I'm going to move on to something else. But the data said 60% of your sales are coming from sweatpants, Dance. What are you going to do when you remove the 60% of your sales and replace it with something you've never sold before? Now you're sabotaging your business, which I ain't going to lie, I attempted it. I said, you know what? I'm going to take this money that I know I should put on sweatpants and put it somewhere else. And then I was looking crazy because nobody wanted that. They were literally in my DMs and in the comments and in my emails like, when are you restocking the sweatpants? When are you going to get another color? And so that was a really hard lesson that I had to learn, that the data is never going to lie to you. The data is going to tell you exactly what it is and what it is not, what is working and what is not, what is making you money and what is not making you money.
That's right. And I think we talked earlier about the glamorous part. People want the glamour of owning a boutique, owning an e-commerce business. It's less glamorous than you think. It's more work than it is the glamour. There's some fun parts about it. It is fun. If you love it, it's fun. If you're serving the people that you want to serve, it's fun. But at some point, you're going to be on board. Like, I'm bored with this business. But when you get bored, make sure that you are buying what your customer wants so that you are having, positive cash flow and profitability in your business so you can go on vacation, not be so bored. So when you get bored, go on vacation. You can go on vacation. You can go do some things. But if you keep bringing in new stuff to try it, you're not being profitable because you're not giving your customer what they want. There is a thing called testing, and I do love testing. So you just see, are they going to I'm going to try this thing. But you buy it very, very tight. You run out of it. Just to test, and then you bring it back in. So I think that's important as well.
Yeah, I think that's so good. We just be out here doing all the wrong things, Darlene. It's because we don't be having a you. We don't even know a you exists. Like, it was so mind-blowing to me that I worked in retail for all those years in all those stores, and I never, ever once stopped to think, like, who sets our goals? Who decides what inventory comes to this? Because, once I moved up in, like, management, they would send me to different stores within our district. I would have to work, over here, and then 3 days from now I have to work over there. And they would have totally different assortments of inventory. Like, I would be like, I love when I get to come to this store because they got all the good stuff. And then my home store was trash. I was like, why we get the ugly stuff? Like, what's going on? But I never stopped to think, like, who decided this? Like, whose job?
I did.
Like, oh my God. So shout out to the users.
I'm going to talk a little bit about what I did incorporate and how it works with my clients. So most of my best friends are buyers because I was the check to what they were doing, right? And so we had a love-hate relationship, love you, hate you at the same time, because I'm the one putting the handcuffs on them saying, no, let me keep you in these parameters, let me keep you in these boundaries so that we can be profitable and stay in business. And so one of the things, the numbers starts first, and then they go by products for that number. Then I had another team that would tell us how many units for each product, what the sizes are for those products. And then I have another team that would just do the financial part. And another team that was sending the product to the stores, helping the buyer develop what you talked about, assortment plans by volume. So a high volume store is going to get more inventory. Like, they will get depth and breadth. Volume store would get just a select amount of that type of line. So we work with the buyers to do that. But that's why we were so close, because the numbers and the product just go hand in hand. And then you throw the match to the fire of marketing. Right? So then the conversations, we go into a marketing room. So all of it just kind of works together. And when you just look at the one thing and it's by itself, you're missing the whole ecosystem of running a business, right?
Yeah.
All those things go together.
That's so good. I feel like we're going to have a whole nother episode where I just like document all the things that I saw working in a store and be like, okay, so tell me why, because I never thought about it until now. And I need to understand, like, even for example, I cannot go down this rabbit hole right now, but like, even for example, you know, once I became like, you know, a assistant store manager and so on and so forth, like we would have this big monthly goal, and then that goal would get broken down across, you know, each manager or whatever who's contributing what. And then we would have like zones of the store, like each zone would, you know, have a name or whatever, and it would be like, this percentage of sales is going to come from here. Like we need to sell this quantity of this thing this week. I never thought, why are they telling us what to focus on this week? Like, why you got to focus on that? I need to sell this stuff.
Yeah. And I'm going to tie it back to the cash flow conversation we're having. Yeah. When you're looking at your top sellers in your store, that's where you're going to focus your customer on. You're going to focus them on that, because more than likely they're also your margin driver.
Yeah.
So they're making you money. So I'm going to focus them on. One of the things, I know most of your customers are e-commerce, but I want to talk about stores for a second. Yeah. Most of the time when you lay out a floor, you're going to put your best styles to the right-hand side, because people walk to the right first.
I did not know that. Guess what? I know for a fact that I walk to the right in every store. That's amazing. Wow. I literally, I just consciously.
Your hero item is going to be on the right-hand side.
Wow. I just consciously thought in my brain, like, I don't know, my brain went really fast. It like visualized me walking into like 4 stores at one time, and I walked to the right in every single last one of them. That's wild.
Yep.
See these things, like who knows that? You.
Those are things I know. Those are things I had to look at.
It's so interesting because, again, from just working in the store, I don't see it that way. I see it in, this is how much money we need to sell. I mean, we need to make. This is how many products we need to sell. This is how many people need to come to the checkout and have a UPT of 5. Like, that's all my brain thinks in. It doesn't think in assortments. It doesn't think in, well, now it does. But back then, I didn't even know what that was. I was like, oh, you said we need to make $5,000 in the next hour? Got it. I'm going to sell the crap out of this stuff.
So one of the brands I worked for was Old Navy. If you ever been in an Old Navy store, you know, when you first walk into that, you see a whole big table of tees or tanks.
Yeah.
Because guess what? We want you to buy 5 of those.
Yes.
Before you even get to the rest of the store.
Yes.
Strategically placed there.
So good.
And do you think that the Old Navy buyer wants to buy more than just tees and tanks? Yes, of course they do. But that's what sells.
I literally just bought like 6 tanks from the store that I'm not supposed to go to, Target. I bought 6 tank tops, but like it's exactly that. It's like, you got new colors for the season. Right. It's my favorite tank top. Like, of course I'm going to buy 7 of them. Of course. I wear them all season. I wear them all year. Of course I need spring, summer clothes. Of course I do.
Of course.
Insane. Okay, let's talk a little bit about data.
Okay.
What's one piece of data that every product-based business owner should be tracking regularly that they likely are not right now?
Oh, dang, one? Just one? Okay.
Okay, give me like your top 2. Give me your top 2.
I would say that the number one for me, and it's my favorite report in Shopify, is sell-through.
Oh, it's my favorite now too, because
I love sell-through. Yeah. Because sell-through tells you the health of your inventory. It tells you how healthy you're getting through that inventory or not. Are you making money from that style or not? Yeah. So sell-through, for people who don't know, sell-through is just your stock that you sold over a period of time, divided by what you had at the beginning of the period. And Jess will probably put a calculation in for y'all. But it just tells me what's working right off the bat. It tells me what's working. And I can also see what I bought too much inventory in and what I didn't buy enough inventory in. Because you can have a style that is actually working. You just bought too much inventory in. Yep. You know, or a style that can do so much better. You have lost sales because you didn't buy enough in it. So that is one of my favorite, by far one of my favorite things for people to look at. Yeah. And when you think about it, a fast fashion business is going to have a high sell through, and then a person has more basics, essentials, going to have a lower sell through. And I think a lot of people want to know, like, what's my sell through should be? Well, it depends on what your business is. What's your business model? You know, and even in your business, which categories? Some categories you're going to turn through inventory much faster than other categories. Yeah. So you have the understanding about your business and just be custom, you know, customized to your business. And then I think the next piece of data, just your sales, just sales in general. Look at what's happening, your margins. Look at what's happening. I would say every morning, 15 minutes, just look at your product. Look at what's selling. Look at what kind of margins you're making on what's your number one, two, I would say your top five.
Yeah.
What's your top five?
Yeah.
And if I know that my margin plan, because I did a margin plan, my margin plan for this quarter is, 60% or 55%, then I can look at what are my top five doing? Are they within that margin percent? Are the top five that I thought would be top five, are they top five? If not, something's not right.
Yeah.
Because you planned it.
Yeah.
You knew exactly what would be. You bought it that way. You planned it. So you can troubleshoot really quick. When you don't plan it, you can't troubleshoot. You really can't troubleshoot.
Oh my God, that's so good. I literally just said similar words in the lessons that I was telling you I'm adding to the program, because I realized that, do you know how often I ask someone, what was your goal? And they say, I didn't have one. And I'm like, how in the world? How would you ever know if you're doing it? Because, everybody loves to say like, oh, I'm doing bad, or I feel like it needs to be better. And it's like, what are you measuring it up against?
That's right.
What were you shooting for to begin with? And it goes back to what you're saying, is if you plan it, regardless of if you meet the goal or don't meet the goal, having the goal is the most important thing, because you get to say, here's all the effort I put in to meet said goal, and this is how close or how far away I was. I now understand how much effort it takes to get to blank. And if I want to get to this other thing, then I'm going to have to shift this point of my business or this point of my business. It gives you something to look at. So many people don't have goals, and I think that's so interesting that they start businesses and it's just.
And how do you do that? How do you grow a business? And
exactly,
if you can't troubleshoot it, how do you know what to tweak to grow that business, to scale that business?
Exactly. Oh my God.
Don't.
Exactly.
I like the story. So I also work for Gap. So I work with Gap Inc. So I was in two divisions of Gap. Gap started because Don Fisher was a tall guy, and he wanted to find denim, and he couldn't find denim for his length or for his length.
Wow.
His height. That's how he started. It was a small store in San Francisco, which turned into what we see now.
Wow. That's amazing.
But just like I think a lot of people don't think, they just think, I'm just selling stuff. I'm just doing this. And that's fine if it's a side hustle or whatever. But if you want to build a brand, you got to start thinking strategically. You really do.
Yeah. And that's why module 1 of the program is branding, because people think branding is just like the colors and the logos and like the pretty stuff. It's like, no, it's deciding what this business is and who it's for and what makes it unique and special and where are you going? Like, sure, you are here right now, but what are you striving to build? And the key word here is build, because I don't know why, but people don't think they got to build this business. Like, it takes time to build big business.
The other thing people don't have sometimes, Jane, is they don't have a vision for their business at all. Like I make my clients have a short term and a long term. I'm like, what do you want to be 5 years from now?
Yeah.
Because what we do now is driving to that 5 years. It's building a foundation for that 5 years. So I think vision is so important to know what you want to do. Again, if you just want to side hustle, that's fine. That's what that's going to be. No problem. But if you're saying, I want a brand, I want to be known in people's houses.
Yes, it's so good. And I feel like I'm just continuously giving you your kudos in this episode. But like, when I first started working with you, I think by then I had already decided that my brand was going to be a loungewear brand, but I wasn't smart enough about business and inventory and assortment and all that good stuff to stick it out. And in hindsight, I think that without you, I would have probably gotten really emotional about it and would have been like, I am so tired of selling sweatpants, because that is not even my lifestyle. Like, this is not even me. I would have jumped ship real fast. That loungewear would not have lasted. But because you taught me everything that you taught me, and because I was working with you, monthly, or we could say daily, because you're in my business, you know what's happening, because you were able to explain to me the importance of making sound inventory decisions with the financial aspect of it in mind, not the emotional aspect of it in mind. I've stuck that thing out, and I will continue to stick it out. And because of you, I was able to see that I was building something that was going to be long lasting and could grow into something that was significantly bigger than what I had ever imagined that it would be. Before you, I wasn't selling hundreds of anything or thousands. Like, now I'm in the thousands of probably close to 10,000 pairs of sweatpants, probably 7,000 pairs of leggings, like crazy. I would have never, because I would have just jumped from thing to thing to thing over and over again because I wouldn't have known better. So shout out to you for the millionth time.
Well, thank you. When
Um,
you do better, you do better.
Exactly. I mean, honestly, that is the most simple thing. It's the thing we know that if we know better, we do better, and yet we don't seek out to know better,
Yeah, yeah.
to do better.
I think the other thing is you're constantly learning. Like you're consistently learning, and it's so important. I have a coach. I know you have a coach.
Yep.
We have them because they help us go faster. And so for me, I like speed. I do like speed.
Me too. Same.
I want to go faster, and because I don't want to make the mistakes. Like, you've already learned the mistakes. Teach me so I don't have to have the mistakes.
Yes.
And so one of the things I think that, I learned from being in corporate as well is we always got a mentor. Like, I always had a mentor in my career. It was a little hard sometimes in corporate because I was very different from everyone else, right?
Yeah.
For different reasons. But they always gave us, like, for me, my thing was public speaking. I hated public speaking. So my mentors were always, public speakers, like the best public speakers. I think that when people have other people around them that's at another level than them, it helps them be better at what they want to be. So you're always learning from them. You're always learning from the people around you. And I think we talked about this before. Who are the 5 people around you?
Yeah.
Because that's where you're going. Wherever those 5 people are, that's where you're going.
Yep. So true. So true.
We got off the inventory subject.
No, this is good. I mean, it's relevant at the end of the day because a lot of people, I actually was creating a carousel about this morning, and I try not to be the political person on the internet. I try to stay away from things, but the carousel I was making this morning was about specifically Black women in business and how oftentimes we don't ask for help because we wear this cape that we gave to ourselves, and we think that we have to save our own day, and we don't seek out for help. We don't ask for help. We don't think that we can ask for help. And we think we get some type of badge of honor in learning all the lessons and making all the mistakes and digging ourselves out of our own holes. And it's no, the biggest things that I've gained in business have come as a result of relationships that I created with other women in business and oftentimes other Black women in business who have been there, done that, and are not going to let me make the same mistakes. We hold each other up. So I think it's relevant, You gotta ask for help, Jesus.
Yeah, ask for help. Ask for help. Seek out help. And even if that help costs you something, your return on investment is so much higher and so much faster than you do it yourself. Why wouldn't you invest with someone who has handled $350 million of inventory one time? And you have 50,000. Why wouldn't you? This person's seen things that you haven't seen. They're looking at things, and they're going to look at your business in a way to help you get faster. So the return on investment is amazing. So that would be,
No, and I think that goes back to what you were saying about vision, because I think that the bigger your vision is, the more likely you are to understand the importance of seeking out help from people who've already been there, done that, and have far surpassed where you are right now, because they already know what to do. So if I want to get there faster, if my 10-year vision and I want to cut it in half, the easiest way to cut it in half is go find somebody who's already done that, so they can tell me how to cut it in half or how to do it better, make more money, and not, make all the mistakes along the way. But speaking of investments, you are inside of E-commerce Profit Plan as a coach.
Yes.
So one random day, I decided that I wanted to share Darlene with my community. And I was like, do I really want to share her with them? Because are they really deserving of her genius? And I said, you know what? I'm going to bring her on in there. Initially, I started bringing you into the membership, I think we did it a couple times a year. And then eventually I said, Darlene, I think you should come join me in this program, because the truth of the matter is, as we stated, I know sales. It's just the thing that I just love, and I know, and I love content, and I love marketing, and I love all that. Inventory is it's the thing that I learned along the way. It's not the thing that I enjoy. I don't want to do it. I don't want to. So anyway, I said, Darlene, you should come join me. And now you're here. Shout out to you and all the students who get your lovely presents every single month. But I would love to hear from your perspective. What's one shift or system or lesson that you love teaching inside of the program that makes a big difference in how our students approach inventory planning?
Yeah, I think that I love teaching in the group, and there's so many different levels of people in the group, you know, whether they're 3 days in or 3 years in. Mm-hmm. So it keeps me on my toes too, you know. But I think the one thing that we drive, and I think I said it earlier, is how to be proactive and not reactive.
Yeah.
And what I see, and because you're in there for a good amount of time, I get to see people who are there 3 days into the program and where they are the, you know, last week in the program and how much they've changed and how they are proactive.
Yeah.
And I think almost every call we have, I'll text Jans and say, oh my gosh, this person had improvement. You know, oh, this person has so much, but this person's new, they have so much potential.
Yeah.
And you get excited about where you're helping them in their journey.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's the biggest thing. It's the mind, the mental or the mindset shift that happens for them.
Mm-hmm. I think my favorite thing that I get to witness you teach every year is I think it's your very first lesson that you teach in your curriculum about the beast, boss, or babe.
Yeah.
That's my favorite because everybody, you ask everybody to say which one they think they are, and then you go through their lesson, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm a babe, like I'm not." And it's so funny to me because I remember being that person coming to work with you. Like I just felt like I had everything going for myself. Like it was just, you know, sugar drops and rainbows. I don't know, and I was like, I'm making a lot of money over here. And you were like, you're not making any money, actually. Like, there's no money. You don't know this. You don't know that. And it was so, for lack of better words, humbling. But I think it's the kind of humbling that every online or, you know, brick and mortar retailer needs, because it's so easy to assume that you're doing well in this business when you're actually not, and when you don't know what to look at to actually define good versus bad. If you're only looking at the revenue on that Shopify, it's very, what's the word? It's very fulfilling to look at that page. It's like, wow, I had a great day. I'll never forget. I don't know if you remember this. I'll never forget. And, you know, went and bought my monthly stock of sweatpants like I always do. And I decided one random day that I was going to sell my sweatpants for $7.77.
Lord, yes, I remember this.
I sold these sweatpants for $7.77. Now, in hindsight, strategy was there. It just wasn't fully planned out. And I should have wrote Darlene in on what my strategy was here. So I got all these sweatpants and said, you know what? I'm going to sell these sweatpants for $7.77. In my head, I'm going to tell y'all what my strategy was in my head, so y'all can not do what I did. I was like, you know, everybody loves these sweatpants, and I know that if I sell them for a really accessible price for this one day, I'm going to gain a bunch of new customers. And it was before Black Friday. I was like, I know that this is going to be a huge component of my Black Friday sales. I know I'm going to bring in this jogger set that features the sweatpants. So if I can get the sweatpants to as many hands as possible, I am going to have a brand new, great customer base. And that did work out. That did work out. But in the moment, it was such a terrible idea, because I ended up selling every single pair of sweatpants that day. I did not see that happening at all. I sold every single pair at $7.77. So I basically made my money back, which was fine. But from a cash flow perspective, in hindsight, if I'm thinking about it clearly, I want to say this was probably one of those months that we planned for me to be in the negative. So from a cash flow perspective, it did not make sense, because I just cycled the same money back in, and it just messed up my whole assortment for the whole month. Because now the timing's off, the money is off. It was just so off. It was so off. So again, I was such a babe in that moment. Like, what are you doing?
I remember texting you, what did you do?
I mean, we can't go too deep into it, but from every aspect of the business, it was so wrong. It was right in this one little minute part of the business, meaning I did gain a bunch of new customers, but it was so wrong for every other aspect of the business, because the cash was wrong, the inventory was wrong for the rest of the month, because now I got to go buy new inventory, wait for the new inventory to come. We were having to fulfill way more orders in a short span of time that we weren't anticipating, which meant I had to pay more people in a shorter span of time to fulfill more orders. The cash was so off. off in that moment. And again, going back to that fulfilling screen, it's very easy for you to look at that number and say, wow, this was a great day.
Yeah,
Oh my God,
yeah.
it was so good.
Yeah.
I did so bad.
But Janice, here's the thing. If we had planned it, it would have been a great strategy.
Exactly.
If
I'm
we
like,
had
if I had just
it
wrote
wasn't
in
bad in
Darlene.
itself. It's just we didn't plan for it.
Exactly. And I think that just goes back to why I invited Darlene into the program, because I am still the client at the end of the day. I am still the person who will create you a strategy that says, well, you said you want to have 1,000 new customers. Cool. I got you a strategy, but we need a Darlene to say, yeah, you can do that, but now your inventory is going to be all wrong. Like, we need somebody real. You know how you were just saying, like, you were like the gatekeeper, or like you for the buyers in the corporations. Like, we need you to say, no, you're not going to do that. Don't do that.
And so, I mean, what I love is working with creative people like you. I'm not necessarily creative because I deal with money that gets you in prison, right? So I'm not creative with money, but I love working with creative people, and I can look at it and I can tell you what's going to sell well, what's not going to sell well, but I can't create. So I love working with creative, but giving you some parameters to work within so that you're successful in your long running.
Yeah.
Because there's too many times, because of the reactiveness of the business, and there's good to have reaction. There's good. But I would say 70 to 80% of it should be planned.
Yes.
And then you have 20 to 30% that you can play with.
Yes.
And just do your gut and do reactive stuff.
Such a good lesson.
Yeah.
I think, you know, in having a you and a me, I think it also gives testament to why I added the other coaches into the program too, because, you know, one of the things I remember in working with you is when you would give me my reports, you know, every month, and you would say, this is how much we made, this is where it came from, but you would also show me, like, this is where you lost sales, and you would show me, like, you know, my abandoned carts and things like that. Well, now you know that people are abandoning their cart. On one hand, that's an inventory issue. On another hand, that's a marketing issue as well. Because it's like, what else could I have done to get those? Because sometimes it's because you ran out of inventory. They weren't able to fulfill the order. On another hand, it's you may have ran low on inventory, or you didn't market holistically in the way that you should have. So having a Pamela in the program, she's able to say, Darlene said you ran out of inventory, and also you probably needed an additional email in that flow, or you probably should have sent one more, or having a Brianka to say, like, I see the bigger picture of all this, like your traffic was wrong and your abandoned carts were wrong, and if you had looked at this data point, you should have done this. So I started to realize, like, having a retail background, or the retail background that I had versus the one that you have, as small business owners, there's very few people who are ever going to have a full team of people in all the departments. So the next best thing that I could do was to bring the brains into the program and say, okay, you have access to the knowledge. They may not do the work for you or make the decision for you, but you have access to the people who have made these decisions and can tell you when and if you're going to go wrong, or you're going to do that well, or if it's going to work or it's not going to work. So, child, I'm so grateful for y'all.
I think that when you think about it, you're right. Small businesses don't have the team necessarily. They'll grow to have the team. I've watched one of my clients go from just her to a team of 20 now, you know? Yeah. Because her business grew, because her cash was flowing, right? So, but I think if you think about it, there's a CEO of a business, they have a COO, they have a CFO, they have, in retail, they have a chief merchant as well. Yeah. Because that CEO doesn't know everything. They're not good at everything. They're not supposed to be. And so you have to have a team to help you to see different perspectives of it. Yeah. Right? Because you'll be blind. You have a blind spot on something, and that other person is going to help you with that blind spot. Yeah. I think that is so important for them, for owners to understand as well, is because you're not great at everything. You're not going to be. There's no way. You'll be exhausted if you are trying to be great at everything. So understanding things that you're really, really good at, and then hire the rest. Or get advisors for the rest, or whatever you have to do. Because it's going to take you 3 hours to figure something that I know in 3 minutes.
Yes.
That you know in 2 minutes, you know?
Yes. So good. So good. And that's also, again, another reason why I brought, initially I had just a Bianca, and then I added a Darlene, and I'm like, no, I need more, because I used to be the person answering all the questions on a singular call every single week. And number one, it was very taxing on my brain. Number two, I didn't always have the answers. Like, even to this day, it's so funny to me, and I actually enjoy it a lot, because it just shows that you don't need to have all the answers. Like, I was on a call with Pamela, on Pamela's call, who teaches email marketing in the program, and one of the students asked a question. I can't remember what her question was, and I flat out answered that question wrong. I said, yeah, I don't think Clavio has that, girl. You can't do that. And then Pamela hopped on the call and she said, actually you can. And she shared her screen and she showed. I said, well, thank the Lord you here, because literally I was going to lead her astray. This was not going to be good. But I think, again, that just proves the point. Like, you are not going to know everything, and you don't need to know everything.
No,
like,
right.
Force yourself to try to know everything.
That's right.
You'd be a crazy person. Okay, I got one last question for you before we go. And we're absolutely going to have to come back, because I have 10,000 new questions based off of everything we talked about today. It was not good for my brain, but very good for the listeners. Okay, so my last question is, if a boutique owner, or let's just say product-based business owner in general, is listening today and is drowning in a bunch of inventory, because I know that that's the case for a ton of people. It's the thing that I hear most these days. Or they're afraid to invest in new pieces. They need inventory, but they're not. What would your advice be for them?
Yeah, I think, because this is typically how people start when they come up to me.
Yeah.
It is really going to be reviewing what's selling. And I know I've said it 1,000 times, but that is the key.
Yeah.
Review what's selling, review what's not selling. And it's kind of like when you do your spring cleaning. When you go through your closet, what am I wearing? What am I not wearing? What am I giving away? What am I, all those things. You have to put it in buckets. So in this case, we're going to put it in buckets of what am I going to reinvest in, and what do I need to get through, because I need to get that cash to reinvest in my other things, right? Yeah. And what's working well. What I think that I want everyone to understand is retail cannot have delayed decisions.
That's so good.
Right? Delayed decisions get you in trouble. It drains your profitability, because spring, summer, fall, holiday, spring stuff, it comes. It's not going to wait for you to make a decision. It's going to come. The customer is not waiting for you to make a decision on this spring item that was really bad, so you can have it a markdown in summer, because they're like, that doesn't make sense. One of the key things I think also is to understand transition of seasons. When you're coming out of one season, when you go into the next season, because if you have that inventory left over in summer season, you go into fall, that customer's not buying that summer product. So I want you, if you're drowning in inventory, make decisions, make it fast. And typically I want you to look at, do I need to reshoot it? It's like, is it good? Should it be good based off the other things I'm selling well? And therefore it's just, I didn't shoot it right. Reshoot it, make sure you market it, let people know about it. And then if those two things don't work, mark it down.
Yeah.
And that is all happening very quickly.
Yes.
But you have to make that decision of doing action on something that's not working. I always say, unless you have bad timing, unless you bought something in the wrong timing, by that third week, you know exactly what's going to work and what's not going to work. You have to take action on it. But if you don't take action on that right now, you will not have the money to buy the things that you need to buy. So take action. I think that's the first thing I want you to know is take action.
Yeah.
Look at it, assess it, make a decision, take action. That is the key.
That is so good.
Yeah. And I always say, I have a lot of hope. I do have a lot of hope. But
me too.
Sometimes a bad style, you can't hope it into style.
Exactly. Oh my God. Wow. This is so good. Now I just gotta say, if you ain't selling nothing, that is not a Darlene problem. Okay. If you making $0.00, you need marketing help. And that's why a Jansen, a Bianca exists. Now, if you got all the inventory and it's moving, but you ain't moving all of it, or you need to reallocate some funds, you go find you a Darlene.
That's right.
That's why we all exist for different reasons. Because I know somebody's going to listen and say, oh, I need a Darlene. What you need a Darlene for? You don't have no money to spend on no new inventory. And the inventory you got is not moving currently. Tragic. Well, anyway, Darlene, this has been so So good. I knew it was going to be good. And because it's such a good topic, and it's something that we just don't hear. The internet is filled with people telling you how many times to post and how many emails to send and how many ads to run and how much money to spend on the ads. And there's literally nobody that is like, the inventory though. Like, what are you doing in that department? It's such an important department.
Yeah.
Such an important department.
I'm such a geek. My nephew always says, he goes, Auntie, you such a nerd. I am a nerd. But Emma Grede that was doing a podcast.
Yeah.
And they asked her the question of like, who do you talk to on a regular basis? And she's like, I talk to the design team, the production team, the merchandise planning team, which is my team, and logistics. And so when she said it, I just geeked out. I'm like, oh my gosh, people need to understand about the merchandise planning team. I think people understand about the design team. They understand production, they understand logistics.
Yeah.
But merchandise planning is such a key to everything.
Such a good one. Such a good one. Shout out to all the yous of the world, Darlene. We would be nothing without you. Literally. We would all be out of business, no money in the bank, looking crazy, empty websites, sold out products galore. Tragic. I have enjoyed this conversation so much. Would you love to tell the ladies where they can find you on the internet and all the things? I just know your inbox is going to just be filled now. I just know it.
Yes, I love it. I want it to be filled. You can find me online, emerged/retail.com. You can also email me. I'm fine with emails. It's darlene@darlenemitchell.com. So Jance, this is so much fun. I love talking about this. I can talk about this for hours.
Same. I was just telling my husband yesterday, I was in ChatGPT doing my normal ChatGPTing that I do all day. And I was creating a carousel initially about like brick and mortar stores and like just big mistakes that I know that they're making because I worked in a brick and mortar store for so long. And as I was writing it, I was like, this feels like a book. This feels it feels like way more than just a carousel. Crazy.
Right?
Such good talking points. Yeah. So many lessons. I feel like you would have so many stories about things you learned. I have so many funny, weird, but cool, necessary to know things. Oh my God,
yes.
This is a good conversation.
I think the one thing that both of us have in common is the fact that we just want to see more people do better and have amazing businesses.
Yes.
And so when you see those people who are not doing it, you're like, oh my gosh, you have so much potential. Just let me help you. Let me help you.
Yes.
Because that's the economy.
Yeah.
The big boxes are coming less and less because the small brands are getting greater and greater.
Yeah.
But they need to understand what the big boxes were doing to be great.
Yep. I always tell people, I think to a certain degree, my in-store retail experience was a huge component of me being able to grow my business at the rate that I did, because it was 11 years of my life in a store. I saw enough to be able to say, this is right, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong. Even without the inventory component, I was able to say, this is not going to work.
That's right.
This is going to work. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh my God. We could talk all day, y'all.
All day.
Thank y'all so much for listening. This has been a blast. Let me know what your greatest takeaway was. Maybe we'll incorporate some of you guys' questions in our next episode, because we got to do another one at some point. So send me some good ones. We're only going to choose the good ones. Don't ask us how much to spend on your inventory. We don't know. Okay. We have no idea. If you're interested in learning more about the program E-commerce Profit Plan, send me a DM on Instagram. Just DM me ready, or send me an email at support@theboutiqueacademy.com, and I would love to chat with you more. And until the next episode, I will chat with you guys soon. Bye.